Hello and welcome to another episode of Pasa Hialeah. Hi, my name is Dr. Tony Cruz and I'm the campus president here at the Hialeah campus of Miami-Dade College. And today we have a very special guest. We have Lieutenant Freddy Caceres. He is a law enforcement leader and also an author. So we're really happy to have him here with us today. Good day, Lieutenant. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Cruz. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. And we've had several conversations over the last few months, and just thought it would be great to have you on the program. I think that is a much needed perspective from all of your law enforcement experience. But I know you have other experiences prior to that that are very valuable also for those out there that are leaders.
Yes, sir.
And so, first of all, just to get to know you a little bit better, for everybody to know who you are, just tell us a little about where you grew up, where you went to school, kind of early career, because I know you had a career before law enforcement. So give us a little bit of background about that.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on.
You're
I've
welcome.
seen some of the guests that you had on prior to me, and it's an honor to follow them, and it's an honor to be on a show that's called Pasa Hialeah.
That's right.
So, being a lifelong resident of the city of Hialeah and now working for the city of Hialeah Gardens, I grew up in Hialeah and Hialeah Gardens both, and I started off my education in Twin Lakes Elementary, which is in Hialeah, Jose Marti Junior High, which is in Hialeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then I went to high school at Hialeah High, and later attended the police academy at Miami-Dade College in the North Campus. I love living in Hialeah. What can I say about Hialeah? We're our own world. We have our own street number sequence, for God's sake, you know.
Right.
People who are not from here, they don't like coming sometimes. They're like, I get lost in Hialeah, but if you're from Hialeah, you just know.
Sure.
Hialeah, you get to know it, and it's funny because the other day I was at a traffic signal with my wife, and I really realized how Hialeah I am when she, I was a few cars back and the light turned green, and she's like, "Hurry up, this light changes red pretty fast," and I knew that, So you get to know Hialeah, and I love living in Hialeah because the slogan is the city of progress, and it actually has progressed a lot throughout the years. I could actually remember when all we had was Piccadilly and Red Lobster, right, on 49th Street. So if we wanted to go to Olive Garden, we had to go to Pines, or we had to go to Kendall to eat
Sure.
at different restaurants. And now we got it all. We got Starbucks, Longhorn, Olive Garden, and you're getting an Outback right across the street.
Right
So you
across the
guys are
street
happy
on
about that.
49th Street. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. You guys could walk over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Hialeah is just. I've tried to leave a couple times. It's just like I said, it's progressing, and it's a great place to live. I know you had Jenny Lee Molina on, who's the
Mhm.
co-founder of the Leah Arts District, which is huge for us.
Mhm.
And you have a lot of young individuals going into politics, to council, that they have fresh blood and they have new ideas for Hialeah. And it's just progressing. I love living here.
Well, that's great, and we're glad to know that you're such a big part of this community. One thing that now turning a little bit more to the law enforcement side, and like I said, you are our first guest from the
Oh,
the
good.
law enforcement
Great.
leader, and I
That's
think
great.
it's a great perspective because
Yes, sir.
the country's gone through a whole lot in the last year and a half, not just with the pandemic, but there's been
Yes,
a
sir.
lot of civil unrest, a lot of
Hmm.
demonstrations here, necessarily not in Hialeah, but I know in Miami and
Hmm.
across the country. And I know that makes it more challenging for law enforcement.
Yes,
And
sir.
so I wanted to get your perspective on how that has impacted your role as a law enforcement leader.
Yes. Well, Dr. Cruz, I mean, we're very blessed in our community to have some great residents that support the police.
Mhm.
Nevertheless, we're always prepared for anything, civil unrest, hurricanes, pandemics, you name it. We
Mhm.
just harp a little more on the issues when they're present. So, I mean, we've always trained our personnel. We give them great training here at the Hialeah Gardens Police Department. But with issues going on, we revisit our ethics training, our de-escalation training, tactics and technique, use of force, which comes with a strong perception that it's using force, but it also has to do with de-escalating and knowing how to talk to people, and
Sure.
definitely a lot of mental health training and autism training, and there's a lot of training that we've always actually performed. Just when issues come around, we kind of harp a little more on those, and we revisit them and just pass it on to our personnel so they could provide the best service possible to our residents.
Well, that's great, and we do appreciate your leadership and also your team. in the police department, because keeping us safe is actually obviously a very important thing for us. So
Yes, sir.
we do appreciate the sacrifices that all your team members and all officers do on a daily basis to make our community a safer community. So
Well,
thank you for
I
that.
appreciate that. I appreciate that, Dr. Cruz.
And so you're a law enforcement leader, but in addition to that, you're an author, right?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
so a few months ago, we met here in my office, and you gave me your book, and I did read your book,
Oh, I
and
appreciate that.
I have to say it's a really great book. It's chock full of a lot of information, a lot of good tips for those individuals out there that want to be leaders or are leaders, and how to improve their leadership style, the things that the strategies that they use on a daily basis. And
Yes.
what I love about this book is it's very practical, right? Very practical in nature. People can read it and understand it, and apply these the topics that you go over. I think two things that resonate with me as a leader, and I agree with a lot of things in the book, but a couple of things that resonate with me is leaders need to be lifelong learners. I think that
Yes,
is a critical piece of everything. And obviously, being in higher education for me, it's very important. But I know that for any leader, regardless of what industry you're in, being a lifelong learner, continuing to learn, read, is essential. And second, another thing that resonated with me is the fact that we need to motivate and support and engage our employees, the people who report to us on a daily basis, so they feel valued, right? So and feel incentivized to continue doing the work that they do, whether it be in your realm, with law enforcement, higher education, it could be banking, it doesn't matter what the area is. So those are two things that resonated with me. I want to know, this Second Nature of Leadership, your book, what inspired you to write it?
So coming from corporate America, working for a large telecommunications company, I worked my way up the corporate ladder, and I was an operations manager there. And there was several supervisors, field supervisors, managers, and I was witness to a lot of great leadership, a lot of good management supervision techniques, but I was also witness to a lot of ineffective leadership. Fast forward throughout the years, coming into police work, and I moved into the rank of police sergeant. Same thing, I've seen some supervisors that are effective, some that are not so effective. Always wanted to write a book my whole life. I said, this may be a good topic. So I started jotting down notes, day-to-day activity, actual occurrences, occurrences that I would run into that will give me the ideas. The book's very down to earth. There's a lot of real life issues that I've encountered at work that basically people could relate to. So one thing led to another, and I had a 14 chapter book. And the reason it's called Second Nature Leadership is because a lot of these skills may not come natural to everyone. You might be an introvert, you might not have the education, not be a lifelong learner, and just get put into a management position without the proper training and guidance. And then a lot of the topics I speak about in the book, if they're repeated consistently, and you think about it, you're like, oh man, this guy walked into my office, I didn't even stand up. I just like, yeah, how you doing? Like a lot of little things that you could train yourself so that they do become second nature. And in turn, your positive influence and your impact will eventually just become second nature. You won't even have to think about it. That's a lot of people come with a natural gift. They're great speakers, they're very charismatic, but not everyone is. So pretty much that's what the book entails. I talk a little bit about family. I relate family life to work life. I talk about motivation. I talk about embracing change, because change is always going to occur, always throughout our lives. And you have to learn to embrace it and know how to accept it and adapt. But yeah, it's a short read. It's an easy read. I didn't want to go with a 400 or 500 page book. I noticed you have a great book collection in your office when I visited you, as I do in my bookshelf. But not everyone is with technology and the phones and Nooks and iPads and YouTube and audiobooks. Not everyone could sit and focus on a 400 or 500 page book. So I purposely made it a short 14 chapters, 163 pages. It's a lot of useful information.
Well, I think those are great points about leadership, and I do encourage everybody to pick up their copy of your book. And what's the easiest way to pick up one of these copies?
Anywhere books are sold online. I mean, all the avenues. Amazon is usually the go-to, but you name it, it's everywhere online. And yeah, like I said, it's on sale right now if anybody wants to pick it up. But Amazon's usually the go-to site.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
Well, again, encourage everybody to do it. It is a great read, lot of great information. So I highly encourage it. I want to. The last question for you is one that I ask most of my guests, and
Yes, sir.
that's, you have a lot of experience, life experience, professional
Mhm.
experience, and many of our students are either starting out their careers here as students at the college, or maybe
Mhm.
some individuals. We have students of all ages, right? So we have students that are
Mhm.
18, but we have students that are 55, are coming back to
Yes,
school.
of
So
course.
what words of wisdom would you like to impart to our students out there?
Dr. Cruz, I'd let them know to press on. Great things don't come easy.
Mhm.
It's almost as if success was designed with obstacles in place. So I'd tell your student that pretty much success is impossible without some sort of struggle.
Mhm.
Um, Pretty much, I tell the student to utilize failure as fuel, and
Mhm.
when they do encounter those walls, just remember to press on.
Mhm.
It's not, it is going to take some work. It's going to take some struggle. There's going to be some hurdles in place. But if they remember the phrase "press on" every time they run into one of those walls, and just try to hurdle that wall or break that wall down and continue, there is a great prize at the end.
Well, that's wonderful advice, and I hope they will take that to heart.
Yes, sir.
And I want to thank you, Lieutenant, for joining us today on Que Pasa Hialeah. And I
Yes,
want to
sir.
thank everybody out there for joining us on Que Pasa Hialeah. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.